If you walked outside right now and looked around, I'm sure you would see at least 2 out of 5 people on their phones, and probably even more than that. If you walked up to them and asked them how much time they've spent on that phone, I'm sure they couldn't even give you a reasonable amount and would probably just make something up. And if you looked at their screen time, I'm sure it would say probably more than 3 to 4 hours that they've spent looking at either social media platforms, news articles, texting, talking, just basically on their phones at all given points of time. In today's society, everyone at least has one form of social media, whether it be Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Many even have multiple ones that they keep up with every day, checking constantly, updating, posting pictures, sharing comments, liking comments, and just completely obsessed with. We are most definitely in the digital age of the internet, where almost everything we do is documented on our smartphones, our laptops, even our watches tend to have stuff that we are constantly looking at, knowing what Apple Watch does. You can look at pictures, messages, you can even make calls. It is the age of the internet, and in Jen Twin's book, iGen, it takes an up-close and comparative look at the generation born between 1995 and 2005 that she has coined the iGen, or iGeneration. This generation she discusses in comparison with the generations before us, meaning millennials and baby boomers. Some of these aspects that changed are that they are growing up at a slower rate, getting their driver's licenses later, waiting until they're 18 or just waiting until their parents make them, drinking at a later age and normally drinking more excessively at that later age, and just spending most of their time online and not really doing face-to-face interactions. Twins sees this obsession with the internet as a growing problem for the generation. She notes that they are spending less time in person with face-to-face interactions and more time online with virtual interactions. She also states how they are more materialistic and less altruistic than previous generations and less inclined to be involved in activism. This is proving to be less and less true as we see in today's society. I believe this generation is more inclined to be altruistic and respect others' individuality. Through the use of social media platforms and physical activism, iGen has been able to promote and enact change in our world through multiple causes such as the Me Too movement, #Black Lives Matter movement, the LGBTQ+ rights movement, and in environmental protection. Through the organization of protests and the use of social media platforms, activism has never been so widespread and known across the world. People from around the world are able to gain and understand knowledge of the injustices around the world and in society because of this widespread knowledge and information that is spread through social media. One of these instances is Arab Spring. Arab Spring was a political movement and protest where Mohammed Bouazizi set himself on fire in protest to the dictatorship and government control of the people. This was videoed and recorded by many different people who saw him do this act, and it spread across the internet and across the news like wildfire. It also spread to other Middle Eastern countries, which allowed for them to join in the protests and get some sort of change. Researcher Jonathan Aubert, an assistant professor at York University, believes that the internet has had a positive impact on the activities of the social media movement by increasing speech, reach, and effectiveness of communication and mobilization. He sees how people from different cultures and backgrounds are able to band together through social media to get change. Social media is the forefront of cultural change of the iGeneration. A new form of communication has become apparent with this generation that is different from the previous. It's almost entirely online now. These platforms have allowed us to maintain relationships through short distance and long distance. Through shared posts and hashtags, we are still able to be involved in our family and friends' lives. These hashtags are also what allow us to be involved in political and social movements through social media. When someone makes a post and they use a hashtag, another person is able to go to that hashtag and see all of the posts that use that hashtag. This is what researcher Elham Jutanchi states as a term known as accidental activism, which is the click of a hashtag that brings a person to the multiple posts and allows them to gain knowledge of what that post is about. This is another reason how Black Lives Matter has become so widely known and popularized. It is because it has been shared so many times through so many different platforms that we are all able to see it no matter what social media you go to. There is at least some type of post involving it. These types of protests are, with using social media, also need to have some type of physical and action taking place to get the type of media that it needs to be publicized. This physical protest has been around for multiple years, hundreds of years, I should say, through large protests such as sit-ins and rallies. Some of the more known sit-ins are the Greensboro sit-ins of North Carolina during the Civil Rights Movement and the anti-Vietnam sit-ins at UCLA. Physical activism is the action that social media calls for. Without one, the other would not nearly be as successful. During Arab Spring, another example, the government shut down the internet and any type of telephone access, so no one was able to be in contact with each other. But this proved to not be successful because it just enacted more protests and change to occur. Teresa Tierney, an MIT researcher, said that when this happened during Arab Spring, said that believing that limiting the internet and cell phone access would curtail political unrest and riots, and the Egyptian government was unprepared for what actually occurred. The government tried to control the protesters, but that showed to be difficult. It is through the use of social media and this physical activism that they were able to gain change and control over what they were doing and bring change to their government. In today's society, the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement has spread like wildfire and caused protests around the world to happen worldwide and to demand justice. While there have been unknown times when African Americans were mistreated and things were gone unheard of or unseen, it is now through video sharing, post sharing, hashtags, and all different types of social media uses that we are able to gain knowledge of these injustices done. We are no longer letting it slip through our ears, but rather using it to demand justice. Social media and physical activism has allowed for our generation to demand change, even if we are glued to our iPhones, like Jean Twenge says. I believe that we are a generation involved in the internet, but also involved in individuality and we care about other people and demand the change that we have not seen over the previous generations. Thank you.